Good morning everyone and welcome back here to the channel. This morning here I have a report that was put out, a news article I guess, by Cottage Life, and this was on MSN on Saturday night. And this was in relation to the Transport Canada and the Canadian Marine Advisory Council about wearing life jackets in boats. Specifically here in Canada, and because I'm in Ontario, basically some of this will be, more based on Ontario itself. So anyways, I'm just going to give a quick overview here of what the report is, and I got a few pointers that I want to put in there and leave that up for discussion. And from what I see on the comments section on MSN is my points kind of fall in line here with what you people, the general boating population, are agreeing on. So anyways, just an overview here, and I'm going to read this article. It's fairly short. Transport Canada, which oversees both recreational and commercial vessel safety, is asking members of the Canadian Marine Advisory Council, the CMAC, to weigh in on whether all boaters, including those in human-powered vessels such as canoes and kayaks, should be legally required to wear a life jacket while out on the water. So who's the CMAC? Excuse me, it's comprised of parties with interests in shipping, navigation, and marine pollution. It advises the federal government on marine safety and security issues. During the Council's Fall 2022 meeting, Transport Canada asked members to provide comments on a list of regulations the agency had developed around life jackets. So this goes back to Fall 2022. I only learned about it on Saturday night, mainly because Cottage Life decided to publish this, and it was available on MSN. So if everybody's like me, you're just finding out about it right now. The proposed regulations include the following. Age requirements. And so it's saying here, require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or life jacket for any person aged 14 years or younger on board a pleasure craft. Or require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or life jacket for any person aged 18 years or younger on board a pleasure craft. Vessel size requirements. Require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or life jacket for any person on board any pleasure craft 6 meters in length and below, that's 19.5 feet. Or require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or life jacket for any person on board any pleasure craft 9 meters in length and below, 29.5 feet. Vessel type requirements, two options here. Require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or a life jacket for any person on board any motorized vessel, such as a powerboat. Or require the mandatory wearing of a PFD or a life jacket for any person on board any motorized vessel, example powerboat, and human-powered vessel, canoes and kayaks. Transport Canada asked its members to submit answers about which regulations they supported, any they disagreed with, or any proposed variations to regulations by February 20th. Today is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. So this is basically due back on Transport Canada's desk by February 20th, which is Monday or Tuesday next week. Transport Canada asked its members, sorry, I already went through that. Transport Canada started floating the idea of making life jackets mandatory on recreational boats in 2018 when it hired a behavioral scientist to conduct an online survey assessing the perception recreational boaters had of life jackets. The agency also sent out boating safety officers to public locations to record the number of people wearing life jackets. I'll come back to this in a second. Using the data collected, Transport Canada crafted its proposed life jacket regulations and is now gathering feedback from safety organizations and industry partners. Currently, so this is current laws, currently boaters are required to have a life jacket on board for each person, but the life jackets do not have to be worn. In 2022, MPP Norm Miller brought forward the Life Jackets for Life Act to the Canadian Parliament, which would require children 12 years of age or younger to wear a life jacket while on a recreational boat. Not complying with the act could land you a $200 fine. As far as I'm aware, that has never passed Parliament. So I do not believe and do not take this to be accurate, though, that is law as we speak right now. According to Transport Canada, wearing a life jacket can be the difference between life and death, especially in cold water. This is true despite the boater's experience, closeness to shore, and even swimming ability. A sudden fall into cold water can seriously affect breathing, nerves, and muscle strength. A life jacket gives you thermal protection as well as keeping you buoyant. Most recreational boaters who die in the water each year in Canada are not wearing a flotation device or are not wearing them properly. Last year, so this is Ontario, last year the Ontario Provincial Police reported 29 boating related fatalities. Of those 29 people who died, 26 were not wearing a life jacket. After February 20th, when Transport Canada has received feedback from the CMAC members, the agency will open the proposed life jacket regulations to public for review and comment through its Let's Talk Transportation website. Input received on these opinions, or these options, and the issue of mandatory wear in general will inform potential regulatory amendments, including the approach taken towards potential non-compliance with any future regulations. So in a nutshell, what they're proposing is that you need to wear this the whole time that you're on your boat on the water. Whether you're at anchor, whether your main motor's running or not, whether your trolling motor's running or not, if you're in a boat, on a boat, in the water, away from shore, you need to wear a life jacket. So why are we not all for this? Well, to start off with, Norm Miller here, let me get back to that. Sorry. So yeah, in 2002, MPP Norm Miller put forward a requirement that children under the age of 12 or younger wear a life jacket while they're on a boat. If that's where the law takes us, that's where it takes us. For my daughter, who is 10, so our rules for the boat. My rules in my boat, while I'm captaining any boat, are the rules that are set out for us as tournament fishermen by BASS and any sanctioned event. And that clearly states that while your boat is in operation with the main motor running, you need to wear a PFD. So that means in my boat, when you come out with me to go fishing or whatever else, you hop in my boat, before I fire up that big motor to go anywhere, before we get on plane, you're wearing a life jacket. You're not wearing a life jacket, you're not coming boating with me. That's my boat rule. So that follows suit with my daughter. When she was younger, I'm thinking somewhere around the age of 6 and below, anytime she was in a boat with myself, my wife, family members, anybody, life jacket was on. She was fortunate enough to grow up with a swimming pool. We know she can swim. Here in Canada, more or less in Ontario, May, June, July, August, September are all swimming months out here. If you're concerned about hypothermia in the middle of the summer, not going to happen unless you're in the water for a very long period of time. And I mean, the chances of that happening are probably pretty slim to none. And so anyways, what am I all for? If you want to make it mandatory, I would say, life jackets for the age of 6 or 8 and below. Mandatory on the boat at all times. I fully agree with that, but that shouldn't have to come from government. That should have to come from the parents. And that's, to me, that's doing your due diligence. If you're allowing your kid to be on a boat, regardless of their swimming ability, at that young of an age, because accidents can happen so quickly, I think a lot of that's going to come back to negligence. And I'm not getting into parenting or anything else like that, but I really firmly believe that no matter what water you're on, no matter where you are, that it should be, put into every kid's mind. It should even be in the schools, that when you're near water, whether you're at the cottage, whether mom and dad are close, if you're anywhere near the water at any given time, supervised, unsupervised, whatever, because accidents can happen so quick, they should have a life jacket on. With the exception to that, from the age of 6 to 8, and then above that, I think they should have to follow the rules of adults, the general public, of, if you want to implement a rule, is whenever the main engine is on and your boat's going to be on plane, everybody in that boat needs to be wearing a life jacket. And I think that's the most simple, that's the easiest way to probably implement this rule, because in Ontario, middle of July, picture yourself out on a boat, 30 degrees Celsius mid-morning, without the Humidex. You have to wear one of these. Nobody's going to be wearing one of those, I guarantee you that. I think that far exceeds any safety issues that we're concerned with here. And I want to touch on that because this is about safety and fatalities. So last year, so whether or not that was 2021 or 2022, Transport Canada made this, provision starting in fall of 2022. So I'm going to assume that the information came from 2021. Do not quote me on that. But last year, the Ontario Provincial Police reported 29 boating-related fatalities. Of those 29 who died, 26 were not wearing a life jacket. So we're concerned about 29 people out of the entire boating population of Ontario, which is going to be substantially higher. I'm not saying that those 29 lives did not matter, but I do want to see what was the cause of them and whether or not they were powerboat related, if they were human powered related, or the biggest factor of all is if they were alcohol related. If any of those out of the 29 were alcohol related, we should be dismissing them right away. First of all, consuming alcohol while in a boat in Ontario, same as driving a vehicle while consuming alcohol, or impaired driving, impaired boating, same thing. It's not allowed, it's illegal. So if we're already breaking the law, let's just, take that number out of those 29. If it's alcohol related, let it be so. It's alcohol related, it has nothing to do with the boat. The boat didn't do it, the water didn't do it. The idiot who was drinking while operating a boat or was impaired while on a boat, the alcohol's to blame. So let's take that out of there. And then, like I say, the other way around is how many of those are powerboat related and how was the accident caused, and how many of those were non-powerboats, so human powered related, and what was the cause of those. Because we really need to dig into what the cause of those accidents were before we go around and we implement a one-size-fits-all regulation that everybody just has to wear a life jacket every time they're in a boat. And they touch on this whole cold water, life and death, blah, blah, blah thing. And that to me comes down to common sense. When the water's cold, so we're talking April, May, like beginning of May, and then, from mid-September till the end of the season, till freeze up. If you're out when there's potential ice or frost and water temperatures are near freezing, you need to realize that, you need to dress accordingly, and you need to have this proper safety gear in place and being worn. If you choose not to wear a life jacket and the water is, 5 degrees Celsius, and you fall in and you die, there's really nobody to blame but yourself. I mean, we can't blanket every boater in this province who obeys the laws over 29 deaths, and we don't know how those 29 deaths happened. So I think there's a lot more information that's needed, and the public needs to know every accident that they're talking about here and how it happened before we can actually sit down and do a survey and pick out the goods and the bads and what we want to obey and what we don't want to obey. I really think that needs to be opened up before this even goes any further, basically. So let's get back to the other side of things here now, is enforcing the law. How are we going to do this? And, as of right now, we still have alcohol-related deaths on our roadways. We still have alcohol-related deaths on our waterways. And we have laws that are being broken on the water and on the roadways every day. And all we hear about is lack of enforcement, lack of people in the jobs, lack of officers on the road, for various reasons. But how about we do a better job of enforcing the laws that we currently have in place before we start trying to implement more laws? So this is federal. This is coming down from the federal government. But the federal government is leaving it up to the provinces to police their own waterways, unless you fall under the jurisdiction of the RCMP. But even them, they don't have the manpower to be able to do it. So instead of trying to come up with all these laws, to make everybody wrapped up in a bubble and you don't want to get hurt, heaven forbid, instead of creating more laws that are affecting law-abiding citizens and blanketing the entire boating public as a whole based on 29 deaths, I think maybe we look at more of the way of enforcing our current laws and making sure we're doing a better job of that, and having the presence of police and emergency crews on the water versus, everybody just wear a life jacket and that's going to save everybody's life, because I really don't think that's going to happen. So let's get back to this whole science table thing here, and that's laughable at best. So here we are, we're back. I found this here. So anyways, Transport Canada started floating the idea of mandatory life jackets on recreational boats in 2018. At that time, it hired a behavioral scientist to conduct an online survey. Anybody else see a problem with that? We got a behavioral scientist, all right, doing an online survey about whether or not you should wear a life jacket in a boat. So this is probably somebody who lives their life indoors, inside of a safe little confined compartment. That's their office. That their ties to the outdoor world is by the internet, all right? And they're trying to decide and make laws for us people who are out enjoying the outdoors about how to be safe while doing it. Coming from someone who's probably never been out there, probably doesn't know how a boat goes in the water, what a boat does on the water, and what do you actually do on a boat in the water during the summer. Who knows? So my point of view on that is, if you already have your officers, you have your M&R, they're already out there doing this job. They're, pulling people over, they're checking for safety kits, life jackets, make sure you have all your safety gear on board, checking for booze in the boat, make sure that you're obeying the laws. If you really want to know what's going on in the waterways, if you want to know how busy they are, how busy they not are, the amount of people who are wearing life jackets and all this other stuff, before we start doing online surveys and hiring scientists to look at this from a data standpoint, how about we send these people out to the field with these officers, with the OPP, with the M&R. Let them tag along with them for a few weeks during boating season, and they can see what's actually taking place and what would be practical and what isn't practical. All right? Let's not leave it up to a whole, basic computer. And it's that computer's still going to be dependent on the information that person puts into it. So that person can make that computer dictate whatever they believe they want it to, right? So anyways, I really think that they're going about this probably the wrong way. So as of for the age limit, I mean, I do support, MPP Norm Miller here for what he was trying to do, and whether or not it's at 12 years of age or below, I do believe that it is a good idea that we have a minimum set law with an age restriction. 12 might be out of the question, but again, it definitely comes down to parenting and, trying to hammer home water safety to your kids. The whole cold water thing, that's common sense, guys. I mean, come on, you fall in cold water, it's going to be a fight. So you're already going to be dressed up full if you're wearing your life jacket, if you're smart enough to wear your life jacket. And they are right, it will provide some sort of thermal protection when you're in the boat from wind chill or whatever else. It will also provide some sort of form of thermal protection when you're in the water. However, that's going to be very quick and very short-lived. Best case of example, if you want to prove to yourself how hard this will be, dress up in your full gear, what you would be in your boat during cold water season. And in the summer, dress up in that, hop in the water with a life jacket on, try to get back into your boat. It's going to be difficult. If you can do it, awesome. Chances are, though, probably 75% or more of you are going to fail getting back into your boat in full winter gear. You're going to think, well, I'm always fishing with somebody, they can help me get back into the boat. I'm going to bet that the odds are better that you're going to pull that person into the water with you versus them going to be able to pull you out of the water into the boat. Both from, accidents that have happened here locally that I know about, and, in general, that's usually what happens is the person who's trying to rescue usually gets caught up in the moment, are not aware of what's going on, and they end up in the water with that person. So now you have two people in the water trying to get out of the water. That just makes for a whole nother situation, right? And the fact that you can hang on to your boat for however long, the fact of it is that when you start boating past Thanksgiving up here, or you're boating before May long weekend up here, there is not a lot of boat traffic, and there are not a lot of people at cottages. The chances of something happening to you on the water and not being noticed by anybody up here are very, very high. There's just not a lot of traffic at that time of year because, again, it's only fishing when it's open, the water's cold, and there's only people that are accessing their property by water or whatever on the water. There's not a lot of people out there. It is very, very remote. So again, this all comes down to common sense. The fact that we have to put into place, or our government has to put into place, some sort of blanket law, some sort of an additional layer of bubble wrap to keep dumb people safe on the water, that's laughable. I mean, where are we getting as a society that, basically you have to bubble wrap yourself before you can go outside to enjoy Mother Nature? And we see this in more than just this. This is, to me, this is my tipping point. This is where I need to start getting involved because honestly, society's common sense is going down the toilet, and it's going down very, very fast. And I can pull up other issues, but I choose not to right now. Same case in point. And especially with the government that we have in play right now in Canada. And not picking on Ontario as a whole for this, I just use Ontario because that's the province I live in. But the federal government as a whole right now, with the current leadership that we have, it seems that we're just trying to bubble wrap society so that nothing bad can ever happen to them. So what happens whenever you try to bubble wrap everything and, take your kids, for example. If you try to protect your kids from every single threat that's out there every single day, and you are successful at that, at some point in that child's life, when they become an adult and you're not there to protect them anymore, the real world's going to hit, and it's going to hit hard. And I mean hard. And honestly, at that point in time, that person is not going to be able to handle or comprehend what they just witnessed, what they just observed, what happened to them, and the fact that you've basically hid them from what the real world really is, you know, it's going to be a real eye-opener. I mean, I don't really know how else to explain it, but we really need to stop bubble wrapping society, bubble wrapping our kids. Let our kids be kids. I mean, for me growing up in the 80s and the 90s, and for everybody who was before me that grew up in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, I mean, there was no helmets riding bikes. You came home with scraped knees, you came home with broken bones, scraped elbows, what have you. I mean, now, you know, you can't even walk outside unless, you know, you have your hat on, you have your sunscreen on, you have your long sleeve sweaters on. You know, whether that's summer or winter or anything, you got to protect yourself from the sun. You got to protect yourself from this. You got to protect yourself from that. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the government might as well just build us a whole bunch of clean rooms, and we'll just all live in these little clean rooms, and that way with round walls, and that way nothing's ever gonna, you know, hurt you. Nothing bad is ever gonna happen to you. So, anyways, just trying to make my point across here, and I mean, really, when it comes down to it, and it says so right here, is Ontario had 29 related boating deaths. So even at the end of the day, if we're going to count all 29 related deaths, boating has its inherent risks. The same as getting up in the morning, the same as taking a shower in your bathroom, the same as using a toaster, the same as getting in your vehicle and driving to work. There's a risk. Yeah, you might not make it home because some idiot might decide to pull out and pass and slam head on into you. I mean, other than wrapping your car up in a whole bunch of pillows and whatever else, I mean, we have all the safety gear as it is, but chances are, you know, if you do a head-on, you may not survive it. It's no different than boating. I mean, every activity that you do has a risk. And if we need to bubble wrap, literally bubble wrap everybody so that everybody's going to be safe from the big bad water, I really think we need to take a step back here and, you know, view society as a whole and figure out what kind of rabbit hole we're going down here. Because from, I think, every Canadian standpoint at this point in time, no matter what your political stripe is, no matter what your thoughts are, as society as a whole right now is going down this weird rabbit hole that when we get down, if we're lucky enough to hit bottom, we're not going to recognize, you know, who we are. So I tend not to get involved in politics, especially here on YouTube. But when I do start getting into it, I get, you know, pretty hot-tempered really quick. So we're going to end that right here today. If anything, guys, please hit the like button. Please share this video. I'm going to put some links down in the description down here. It's going to be for the Transport Canada website, the CMAC website, and some other information here so that you guys can click on it and read this for yourself and, you know, put your own comments. And by all means, please leave some comments here on the channel as well. Interested to see what you guys say. And like I said at the beginning of the video, is the comments that I saw on MSN in regards to this, and there was 56 of them at the time that I printed this off, was that they pretty much supported the view that I just gave you right here. So anyways, if you don't boat, this video is not for you. Basically, this affects everybody who owns a boat in Ontario, anybody who wants to go boating in Ontario. This applies to you, and it does have consequences. So please like the video, share the video. We need to get this out here. And whether or not you support my point of view or not, you need to look at this. If you're a boater, you need to read it for yourself and come up with your own opinion on it. And that way, when Transport Canada does open this up to the public in the coming weeks, that you're able to go onto their website and have your say. So thanks again for watching, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Happy Valentine's Day again. And we'll see you again here on the channel.